I'm the county administrator here in Rabun County. And for most of you, did anybody go to the game Friday night?
Yeah.
All right, Rabun County beat Fitzgerald, so we're in the third round of state playoffs. So, we got to go to Fitzgerald. So,
Beat by Dale.
We beat by Dale. I'm sorry, beat by Dale. We go to Fitzgerald. I'm sorry. Thank you. What's that? Yes. Going down there to play a little football, so that's going to be great. I'm proud of the high school football team and their accomplishments. So tonight, I'm just going to turn it over. I guess I can speak to the fact that we still have laws and structures in this fire. That's a great accomplishment. Again, the outpouring from the public wanting to help donate supplies, etc. It's great to live in Rabun County. I think I told JB the other day. He was like, I said, there's some people calling wanting to do something for y'all for Thanksgiving, and he said, well, logistically, I just don't know how that's going to work because we work on a 12 to 12 shift, and I just don't know how we're going to get the food. I said, listen. There's some ladies calling and said they're going to feed y'all. If you've never been to Rabun County and ate somewhere, they're going to feed you. They're going to feed you. You just don't tell them no. I'm glad that God blessed me to live in a place like this, and it's wonderful to be here. I'm going to turn it over to the guys that knows what's going on with the fire because I'm a listener like you, and we'll get into the meeting. Thank y'all for being here.
All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for taking a good part of your day out to attend us. If you guys were here, when was it?
Last Wednesday.
I'm just kind of coming together for me here. The meeting's gonna be similar format. We'll do a formal presentation and do questions and answers afterwards. We'll again kind of give you a big picture, give you context of what's going on, chat a bit about what we've been doing and what our long-term projection is and our plans for the future. And then we've got some folks from the Department of Public Health to chat a little bit about smoke and how you might deal with that. So anyway, my name's Stan Pinazzo. I'm the Public Information for Pacific Northwest Team 3. And let me start out by introducing a few folks. More than a few. We've got a good bunch here. Just so you know who they are. Darren Giles, of course, you all know him. The county administrator, Kay Darnell, I see that she's here, your county commissioner. Let's see, Jim, are you here? Chief? Oh, there he is, right over there. All right. And Justin Upchurch, assistant, he's right next to him. Mike Mazzarchi, director of Rabun County EMA. Good to see you. Mark Palin. Wait a minute. Mark, there you are. Mark Palin. He's the emergency preparedness director for the Georgia Department of Public Health, District Number 2. Dave Palmer is PIO, right next to him. CJ Warden with the Georgia EMA. There he is. Warren Cave from Macon County. He's the director of EMA. He's way back there. Good to see you. Who am I missing? Greg Smith, North Carolina Forest Service. Thanks for being here. Betty Jewett, Forest Supervisor for the Chattahoochee Oconee.
I'm going to teach him to say it right.
I'm a failure. All right, and Amanda McAdams, who's the agency rep for the Forest of North Carolina. That's easier to pronounce. Right. All right. With that, I will. But he's going to give us again that sort of big perspective, that give us context again on what's happening in the region and the forest.
Thank you. So, good evening. So who was here the other night, just to give you a perspective? Oh, thank you so much for coming back. And so it'll be a little repetitive to what I said the other night, but I'll still have to kind of go over it because I want to give all the newcomers kind of what we've been
We
seeing.
can't hear you real well, some of us that are old.
Oh, is the mic not working?
I'll see.
I don't
Might need to slide it to you there, please.
Yeah, you need to pick it up and hold it?
Yes.
Maybe that would help. How's that? Is that better? Yes. You know, my husband tells me all the time he can't hear me, but I don't. So, again, I'm Betty Jewett. I'm the forest supervisor for the Chattahoochee Oconee National Forest, and I'm stationed in Gainesville, Georgia, but I've worked all over the state of Georgia here. I started my career, actually, it's a little personal note. I started back on the old, down in Clarksville when there was the Chattooga Ranger District down there 27 years ago, right out of college from Clemson, and so hopefully you got some Clemson fans. Go Tigers. And so it's really been wonderful to come back home. I've been home for about 3 years now, and so it's been a real pleasure to be back in the state of Georgia. Of course, all the thank yous that we shared the other night, we want to keep reiterating that because it's still been a big team effort for us to keep a handle on the fire. I'm gonna try to set some. If things are going well, it is getting bigger, and Noel's going to talk to you a little bit more about it. That's why our partners in North Carolina are here. So we want to make sure that the folks in North Carolina are just as aware as you are that we do still have this large fire going on. But before I get into too much of that, but I want to also say thank you. We haven't had any new sets in Rabun County that I'm aware of. So thank you for that. That is a huge deal. We've had a few in some other parts of the state, like over around Fannin County. We had 4 that we ran on the other night, but we got a good line around real quickly. But they were arson. There was an arsonist that was out running around. I think it was Friday night. So thank you to the community for keeping a vigilant watch on that and making sure you're not doing something unintentional that's starting a fire. So thank you for that. So just a perspective, again, here's South Carolina, here's Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and North Carolina. And this is still all the large fires that we've got going on across the Southeast. And so we've had thousands upon thousands of firefighters here in the Southeast. So of the teams, like Noel's team that's here from Oregon and Washington, they're the Pacific Northwest Type 1, Team 3. We have 8 other teams just like that in this zone. And so a lot of fire going on, a lot of firefighting going on across the Southeast. And so that just gives you a perspective when sometimes you'll hear people say that we can't get some resources, and that's why, because they're here. They just may be dedicated to other communities across the Southeast that are struggling with fires just like we are here in Rayburn and Towns County. And so out of this, and you don't even see these on the map, but the 24 hours, we had 207 within this 5-state area, 207 new initial attacks. So that's new fires that all between our state partners, county partners, and the federal resources we've had to roll on that many new fires. And out of those, we still have 52 active large fires, and that's what you're seeing on this map here. And so when they're large, they're somewhat in scale like what we're dealing with here in Rabun County. And then, just across the state line, we've had the Botilla fire as well. And now there's a new one up in around the Grandfather District. What county is that one, Greg? The new one up at Grandfather, around Grandfather. The Dow County. And so that's a new large fire that's they put in the team on. And so just from a perspective, there's just a lot of activity going on. We're in an unprecedented year with the drought, and an unprecedented year with the amount of fire activity that we've had. And it's just been really difficult for us, even with the great partnerships that we've had, to really catch these and catch them quick. We caught most of them quickly. We only have 2 large fires on this in the Chattahoochee County. And so I'm very proud of our partnership and the work that our firefighters have been doing. Otherwise, it could have been worse, because we've had hundreds. I think the other night I said that between us and the state and the county, we've had over 500 fires in the state of Georgia. And that's a hard thing to wrap your arms around. We typically only get 30. So thank you. And so if there's any questions, I'll wait to the end, and I'm going to turn it over back to Stan.
Thanks, Betty. I thought since we invaded into North Carolina, we'd give Greg a chance to speak to what's going on up there. Greg.
Good evening. So I'm Greg Smith. I'm with the North Carolina Forest Service. I'm a district forester with the North Carolina Forest Service out of Asheville. I was formerly a district forester out of Silva District, just north of here. And so I guess folks are, first of all, I've got a question to start out with. How many folks in here are North Carolina residents? If you could raise your hands. Okay, so just a handful here. So I'm glad that y'all made it down for the meeting tonight. And as things continue to progress, we will be evaluating. I know Noel's team here with PNW3 will be evaluating the need for us to do a meeting, up in North Carolina, and that'll be evaluated, and we'll be talking to the team about that. But why is the North Carolina Forest Service involved here? And well, for number one is I couldn't get the state line moved. Somehow there was some politics there I just didn't have connections with. But really, the reason North Carolina Forest Service is involved and why we're tied in here with PNW3's team is so that we can provide a coordinated, cooperative, coordinated effort during the suppression of this fire. We have resources with the North Carolina Forest Service that we can make available to this team. We also have cooperation from Macon County and Clay County in North Carolina that we can we're used to working with, and we can tie those resources together, and we can tie in with this team, with PNW3 from the Pacific Northwest, and work cooperatively together. That I'm here, I'm actually an agency rep from the North Carolina Forest Service and represent our interests and our protection of the private lands of North Carolina. And so they brought me on board to work along with PNW3's team here to make sure that we were being able to provide resources in a cooperative effort. So I just want to give you a little brief rundown why that North Carolina Forest Service is here in front of you tonight. And you will see us out in front of this fire to the east as well as to the west up north, trying to coordinate some efforts there. I want to say a quick word about this team that you have working here. I work with these folks on fires across the nation. I've been dispatched to Oregon for the last 3 summers. I've ran into this team on numerous dispatches. They have a great bunch of staff. They're very knowledgeable in what they do, and they also have a high skill set. And so they like to perform at a high level, and you'll see that throughout the remainder of the incident they're here. And I've had a chance personally to work with them in some other instances or follow in behind them with other teams, and they do a really good job for you. So they've got your best interest at heart, and they're going to continue to keep that up. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Greg. Next up is Noel Livingston, our incident commander. He's going to kind of give you a sense of what's going on the fire right now, why we're doing what we're doing. And without further ado.
Good evening, everyone. Appreciate being here tonight again. Greg, thanks for that. As Stan mentioned, my name is Noel Livingston. I represent Pacific Northwest Team 3. And I know there's some folks that weren't here last week, so I thought very briefly I'd talk about what an incident management team is. And I'll make that brief because I know a bunch of you have heard that already. But essentially, this incident management team, it's about 50 folks, are available to travel around the country. There are about 17 national incident management teams. We're interagency. We have Forest Service, BLM, Fish and Wildlife, Park Service, state employees, local fire. And our team in particular is from the Pacific Northwest, so Oregon and Washington. So usually throughout the summer, we travel around on wildfires, and then certainly this time of year we pull together the group to come down here. So we're happy to be here. We're honored to be here, and we really appreciate the interactions we've had with the communities, as well as all your quality local responders and the folks that have been dealing with this fire before, and we got here and have continued to as the fires progress. So in terms of where we are right now, the Rock Mountain Fire is about 13,000 acres in size, probably a little bit better than that. A very active growth day to day, but roughly 13,000 acres in size. I think when I was here last week talking to you, it was about 5,000 acres in size, if I recall correctly. So it's growing actively daily. And we'll talk about where and how. In fact, maybe Stan, we could throw that up there. We're at about 30% containment, and containment means we have a line established around a piece of fire that we feel fairly secure in saying it's not going to spread from here. That's a contained fire edge. So we're calling that 30%. So have you got the fire progression map?
Yep.
We'll look at that real quick. Kind of talk about what's happened in the last week. So the different colors represent different days, basically. Yeah, okay, we can give that a try. Let's zoom back in just there. There you go, that'll work. That'll work for us. So you can see the bluer shades were the earlier days of the fire. We had some growth out to the west there toward the Hightower area. About the time I think I talked to you last, that was a primary area of concern of ours. We had a pretty good anchor across the southern flank of the fire, so that was kind of the snapshot about a week ago. And you can see essentially what the fire's been doing since we last met is chewing its way to the north. And if you recall when we talked about kind of putting bookends on the east and west sides of this fire and pushing it north and trying to pick it up in the wilderness. And that's what we've been attempting to do. We got up around Tate City. That was a big success for us, getting around those structures, as well as the ones on up to Lula Road there north of Tate City. So, thank you, Stan. That would be over here on this western flank. So each one of these represents the growth that we saw over the course of the day. So currently we're at about 30% containment. We're pretty confident in our containment lines that run all the way around the south, the west, back around Tate City, and then we're just working in here. Last night we were doing burn-in operations, and we're looking at potentially some burn-in operations in here. So this is the most recent place where we've been working. I'll have Alex Robertson come up and talk here in a moment. He's one of our operations section chiefs. He's the lead. He's the lead guy out there on the ground that's directing work and making the plans day to day to talk about where we're going to go. But where we were headed was to put a cap on this up about the ridge line, tying into the Appalachian Trail in a couple of places and some good drainages. What happened to us was the cold front that came through over the weekend, and we were really concerned about that. It got us. Essentially, it blew fire across some pieces that we had not gotten secured clear up here high on the top of those ridges. We were not able to get to those in time, and as a result, it spread fire out further in this area and as well as up in here. So that has changed our strategy, and Alex will talk in detail about that slightly. Let me talk about how we developed strategy then. I mentioned as a team, when we came in, Betty hired us to come down and work here in Georgia on the Chattahoochee. We thought, well, this may be going into North Carolina as well. At that time, we were essentially working for the forest here in Georgia. We now have, the team now has three bosses. So Betty down here from the Chattahoochee, as well as the forest supervisor up on the Nantahala, has given the team a delegation to work for them, as well as the state forester from North Carolina. So we've got three bosses we're working for as we start to look north. Our priorities, we talked about how we prioritize the fire, have not changed. Our number one priority is firefighter and public safety. To this point, we've been very successful there. We haven't had any injuries on the fire. The evacuation coordinations, I think, have gone smoothly, and we have not lost any structures. So success there. That's our primary focus, is that firefighter and public safety, and will continue to be. A secondary focus is structure protection of private lands and improvements. So we're maintaining that focus. That's why the initial lines went in, and the wilderness was a lower priority. And then our third priority, of course, is just general natural resource values, those sorts of things. Those have to come third. We're using that as we develop our plan. I want to talk a little bit about our plan now. So as I mentioned, this piece of the fire on the top is very active, and it's up in the wilderness. It's up in a part of the ground we really can't get to easily or maintain easily. So one of the things when we develop a strategy is we look at what we call probability of success. In other words, what's the chances that this is going to work? If the chances are high, that's the plan generally to go with, particularly where that's close to high values. If the chance is low, then that plan is going to probably get put on the back shelf. Some of the things we consider, particularly on this fire, to determine that probability of success, as I call it, one is, can we maintain the lines once we get them put in? The way the leaf fall is occurring, you have to go back and you have to maintain those lines over time, or the leaves are just going to blow back over and it's going to reburn. And a lot of these fires in Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee have had that problem. So we need to be able to get back to the lines. Are the lines effective? So a road is a very effective line, a river is a very effective line, a cat line is a pretty effective line, a hand line where we scrape off the leaves and dig a narrow hand line is a somewhat effective line. All of those, it depends on whether we can burn them or not, but how effective is the line going to be? Access is another thing we consider. We're down on the roads, we can drive those daily, we can get good with engines. Up in the wilderness, where we were unsuccessful there when the winds came through, we were about 5 miles in. So 5 miles, crews were hiking 10 miles a day just to get to and from where they were working. And then they had to work all day. So that's the wilderness aspect piece. And then general crew availability. As Betty mentioned, there are crews in the south fighting fire for y'all, but they're scattered out because there's so many fires. So we've got somewhere in the range of 450, 500 firefighters out here. You put all that together, the picture it drew in our minds was, and the way this fire is burning right now, and it is burning with extreme intensities for this time of year in this country, we need to be down where we can get to the fire easily, where we can hold it on the existing roads or cat trails or those sorts of things, where we can control it long term. All of those sorts of things come into mind. So that's affecting our strategy. What that's told us is we don't need to be up in the wilderness. We need to get back down on the road systems. The downside of getting down on the road systems is it gets us down close to you all. Okay, we're not way up in the hill. We're not way up on the ridge. We're back down closer to houses and communities and structures. So we realize that impact, but that's the trade-off. I think with that kind of paints the picture of what we're thinking as this fire continues to try to move north. I'd like Alex to talk about how we've been doing here the last couple days or so and where we think we're headed. So this is Alex Robertson. He's our operations section chief.
Good evening. So as Noel said, my job as operations section chief is pretty fun. I get to move all the resources that are out on the fire. Kind of like playing chess and checkers and Stratego all at the same time. The challenge with that is I got a fire that's moving a lot on me every day. Up in some really rough terrain with some really tough access. You heard Noel say that we had our crews going about 5 miles into the Appalachian Trail on a daily basis, in and out in a very short amount of time because of how much light there is. So last couple of days have been some big days for us. We've had a lot of success, a lot of wins. One of those is Tate City. A huge coordinated effort with Towns County, Clay County, and all the way up the Tallulah River Road to the end of the road that ends right about there. Got around all the structures. We were able to protect everything. Got fire where we wanted it. Didn't get anybody hurt, and went really well. And that was successful. We did around the last structures up in North Carolina late last night, to get around them as fire came downhill. Currently today, we needed to get up to what we're calling Deep Gap on the very north end of the map there, and tying into the Appalachian Trail. As we speak right now, they're burning from the top down. We've got a whole bunch of crews in there, and they're firing the Tallulah River drainage in some really steep, really tough ground. But that's our connection to get back over the ridge and onto some easier ground out of the wilderness eventually to deal with the north end of the fire. So very important piece of line for us. We don't have a lot of options out here. So got a number of folks folks actively engaged in here, working that down, and our intent is to hold that. That's going to be difficult. We're using a combination of crews, engines, aviation resources, all in conjunction, mostly during the day because of the safety issues and the exposure at nighttime. But a lot of folks engaged trying to hold that, as Noel described, the western side of the bookend of that fire. The really tough portion for us is this eastern piece, and this line going up the hill right here. That's the Coleman Creek or Coleman River drainage, and it ties into the Appalachian Trail right up in here. We held that, tied into the Appalachian Trail, and actually had it around the corner and held part of the Appalachian Trail for 3 days. So we had our corner there, we had the fire where we wanted it, and we needed to figure out how to tie in back to Tallulah. That was looking really good until the wind blew. Yesterday morning, we discovered early in the morning that the fire had come east of Coleman River and south of the 18. That was one of the spots that we did not want fire. We put aviation on it, we put our folks on it, we got them up there, up the trail systems from both the north and the south into the Appalachian Trail. It was so smoky and so windy they weren't able to do anything about it. We ended up having to pull them out. We couldn't tell where the fire was because of the smoke. Our aviation resources weren't able to fly in the wind. They weren't able to handle that going over the ridges in that windy conditions to get to the dip sites, to get to water, to get back up on the ridge to try to stop that. So we basically had to back off and wait till Monday, today, to see what we had, and once the wind stopped blowing. Our opportunities out here are very few and far between. So this is what we're calling Grassy Ridge. It's a predominant big ridge feature on the map there, and Patterson Gap area. That's Patterson Gap right there in Patterson Gap Road. We looked really hard at being able to open up an old roadbed and using that ridge as our eastern boundary of the fire. What we've discovered is this piece of fire is moving east about a half mile to 3/4 of a mile a day. Currently, it's at Grassy Ridge. It's right in there. Our ability to get crews into those areas on a short daylight day and with long hikes just wasn't going to work for us. The other issue that we're experiencing is that resource shortage. We're having more resources dried out as they time out and need rest and recuperation. There's more driving out of our parking lot than that's driving in. And so there's that competition for resources with the other fires and just the general availability of resources nationally to get more folks to do what we want to do, especially in remote terrain like that, which is really the crews, the 20-person crews, not the engines, the crews that are able to hike in and get into those deep areas and do the work.
Can you show us where the Jewish camp is on that, just to kind of get our bearings?
Yes, I think I can. Camp Dip, so I believe it's right in here. Yep. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, it's right in there. So we have Camp Dip, that's the big pond. That's at the camp. That is our reason the pond is a dip site for our helicopters.
What is the dotted line, that big blue dotted line?
Okay, so the dotted line is our planning area. So as we were invited here to come help with this situation, part of our decision process is the Wildland Fire Decision Support System. That's what the agency administrators use to evaluate and make decisions on how we're going to build a strategy for a fire. Well, initially, when that fire is small, they build a planning area. So what is the planning area that we're going to consider? And we're going to look at all the values at risk and the potential impacts to those values within that planning area. So that's the original planning area boundary. As you can see, they were thinking big. When we got here, this fire looked like this, right over in here. And so knowing the potential of this fire, knowing the fuels, dryness, the lack of moisture, all those things, the potential for fire growth, they built a planning area all the way out here. This fire is trying to outperform the planning area in some areas because of that dryness, because of that wind, And that's what we as firefighters are experiencing is the inability to perform better than the wind and the fire behavior in a lot of places, and especially with the access issues that we have. The eastern side of this fire, this grassy ridge, like I said, it's already to it. And so from the subdivisions over here, Trout Farm, that country, you're going to be able to see fire up on the ridge eventually. I don't know if you can see it right now. It's pretty smoky, but you will be able to see it. Our strategy, what we've had to do, knowing what kind of resources that we can expect to have at our disposal for the next even short time period, 2 or 3 days, or even longer than that, 2 to 3 weeks, if that's necessary, is very limited. So what we've implemented the strategy today is to stay on roads. Because we're no longer going to be able to go up into remote areas that fire's hitting before we can get there, before we can prep it, before we can be ready to hold it. We're going to have to be on the road systems and work our way all the way around. This symbology is our drop points. We cut over into this road system and then hit the 67 and go up. And then we eventually work our way back down to where we're burning right now at DP 70 in Deep Gap. Down back into the river drainage. We're working really closely with the state of North Carolina, the fire departments. We had a cooperating meeting this morning where we are working on coordinating any response, any help, any evacuations, any of those things that we need to do as this fire continues to work its way to the east, to make sure that we're prepared and have a plan and we're coordinated in the response to fire coming down towards any of those homes.
So on the road you're talking about over there, you're talking about Betty's Creek and Mulberry, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, Betty's Creek Road, Mulberry, and around, and then we put a dozer line in today that ties these 2 roads together into this road system, this interior road system, and work our way back onto a road system that we can patrol, we can be there, we can prepare for the fire before the fire gets there, and have a coordinated plan with everybody.
Betty's Creek.
Betty's Creek. So Betty's Creek will be right there. Right there. Betty's Creek Road is right there. Next week.
Is that the state line that goes across?
Right there. Greg's working on moving that there.
That will have success.
Okay. Sam. Thank you.
We'll have some time for questions afterwards. I wanted to give some time to Mark and Dave to chat a little bit about the effects of smoke and what you guys can do to mitigate that in your homes. And then after that, I think there's a few folks that may want to say some other things, and then we'll open up for questions and answers.
Good evening, folks. I'm Mark Palin from District 2 Public Health in Gainesville. This is Dave Palmer. He's our Public Information Officer for District 2 Public Health. And in the back, we have Sue Darnell, the Office Manager for the Rabun County Health Department. What I'd just like to briefly go through this evening is when folks see smoke, the tendency is to say, well, gee, I need a mask of some sort to protect me from that smoke. I want to caution you that the mask is not necessarily the first line of defense against that smoke. For people with breathing issues, for people with heart issues, and anybody's been in the military before and realized what breathing through a protective mask is like, realizes that there's a lot more exertion involved when you try to breathe with a mask on. So if you find yourself in an area that is being smoke covered, which your first line of defense should be go indoors, okay, and not stay out in that smoke. If you have to go outside and you think that you need to wear a protective mask, one of the things that you might do is consult your healthcare provider and find out whether or not that's going to be a good avenue for you given any health condition that you might have. But if several decisions down the road, but if you decide that you do want to put on a protective mask, what I want to caution you is that that please don't buy just a dust mask from the local hardware store, right? You want to have a mask that is stamped on it N95 or N100. And basically, those aren't magic numbers other than the fact that N95, that mask will trap 95% of the particulate matter. And that's what we're concerned about with smoke, are those particles that are in the smoke. An N100 mask will trap 100% of that particulate matter that's passing through that mask. But you pay for that extra 5% in increase in terms of trying to get the air through that mask. A mask such as this that you might see is, some people call it a surgical mask that hooks behind the ear. One of the problems with that is it doesn't give a good seal, all right? And it's pretty floppy. These things are not real tight, and in that particular case, it may not filter out those particulates that you're looking for. So this is the type of mask we recommend. It has a metallic nose piece on this that you can cramp down, not too tight. You have a headache and restricted breathing, but if you do that, that'll keep it there. It has two of these things that connect it to your face, all right? Two of these head straps. And what you want to do, that's better than if you've got one head strap, because again, that's going to move around. And Dave is going to show you basically how to put this protective mask on. And thank you. And we're not going to go through all the effects of smoke because Dave's prepared some great fact sheets. They're out there. Please get them on the way out, and you can read those at your leisure. And if you see the top and the bottom are connected, it's holding it close to his face. He's got that nose piece crimped, and he's got it, and it's hard to breathe. And it's tight against his chin. So again, we just wanted to stop by tonight and talk to you about that. If you have any questions, feel free to call Sue at the Rabun County Health Department for any questions. She's our local contact. And we have been in contact with Mountain Lakes. We talked to them about 2:33 this afternoon. They had not seen an uptick in the number of respiratory cases that were coming into the hospital. Certainly there was no surge attack to that. And they do have N95 masks at Mountain Lakes if you want to go on an individual basis, again, with respect to your individual condition that you find yourself in. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. Also wanted to mention that I think we had a handout, and we also put it out on our website and Facebook feed. There is a smoke report that gives you an idea of where the smoke's going to be today or tomorrow and what kind of risks it might pose. Also, Mark and Dave brought some handouts about some facts that you can refer to that will also help. Again, before we go to the questions, I think Noel had some things that he wanted to clarify in terms of long-term strategies.
Actually, just short-term strategy, but then
Short-term.
yeah, that's okay. It's all strategy. So I think Alex did a very good job of explaining where we're going to have to go out here, because we're going to need to be down on those road systems. I do want to clarify what that means. If you live along the road system, if you live up Betty Street, some of the things that we're going to be doing, some of the things you're going to be seeing in the next couple of days. For one, if we need to, we'll be improving the road system. If we need to clean the leaves, that sort of thing. So the roads themselves, obviously, will be cleaning off. As we come to residents that are going to be potentially on the fire side of the road, we're going to take efforts we can to keep the fire away from the residents first, possibly dozer lines, if we can do that. If not, we'll be prepping around the structure itself, so blowing leaves away from the house, blowing leaves away from the gutters, doing all of those sorts of things as we prepare to bring fire along that road system and around the houses. So where we can, for instance, up in here, where there's more clearing, more space, and topography to work with, probably in the Betty Street area, there are probably some opportunities to put some dozer lines up closer to the hillside, so we keep fire well away from the house. I know there are some houses that are on ridge lines or fairly steep slopes where we may not be able to do that. And in that case, we'll have to work right around the house. So I just want you to know what we're doing. We'll have people there working around the house. As fire gets close, then obviously there'll be firemen there working and bringing fires through. So that's stressful, but it's, that's what you can expect to happen. We've been very successful over on the Dade City side doing just that sort of thing, as well as around these flanks of the fire. We had hoped not to have to do that out here. That was the idea with this line. But at this point, this is our next best option to keep that fire from continuing to go to the east. So that's what you can expect, and we'll answer questions about specifics, but I want to get that out there. The other thing I did want to mention, there's a closure on Patterson Gap Road from Poplar Lane to Begonia. Did I get that right? Okay, cool. All right, thank you. Let's stand back here.
All right, thanks, Noel. I wanted to give an opportunity for our cooperators if they wanted to say anything. You guys over there? No? Or no? All right. Well, great. So before we go to questions and answers, little commercial break here. I wanted to make sure if you're not on our email list and you want to receive an update directly, there was a sign-up sheet back there. Also, there are those little business cards that give you information on how to get information about the fire. So again, feel welcome to also call us anytime on the line. Well, not at midnight, but during our working hours from about 7 to about 10 o'clock. All right, so with that, we'll entertain any questions, and I'll go with this gentleman here.
What's the approximate distance from the fire to Betty's Creek, 80 Farm?
Okay, the question was, what is the approximate distance from the fire edge to Betty's Creek?
Right.
Yeah, I got it.
Put the satellite map up instead of the topography map, I give us a better idea
Sure.
of what we're looking at.
We can do that. It's between 3 and 4 miles, depending on the specific spot you're looking for. And right now, the fire is moving up to a mile ahead. So it's not far enough in terms of. We're going to be fighting fire down around that community. We know that given the forecasted weather.
All right, there was a couple over here that had questions, and then I'll come over on this side. Yes, sir.
I've been on Facebook, I've been calling the governor's office, over the deal, and asking them to call me back, and they hasn't called back. Then on Facebook trying to embarrass them, having everything in capital letters. Why is it a state of emergency in the state? And that way we get the National Guard. My question to you is, if we get the National Guard in, can they help you?
So the question is, can we get the National Guard in, and can they help us?
I can't answer the can we get the National Guard in. That's certainly up to the governor. Can they help us? Yes, we use National Guard frequently in the West, and they, in terms of logistical support, that's frequently the most common use of the Guard. Sometimes we use them as firefighters. They have to go through training just like our firefighters do, and they probably haven't had that, so that would take some time to get them up to speed. I don't know that for a fact.
Has your government issued state of emergency? What's wrong with our government? Can't somebody compare?
So I haven't personally talked to the governor, but I have talked to Robert Ferris, who is the state forester, and he's briefing the governor every day. But in the laws of Georgia, there are a lot of things that come into play when he issues a state of emergency. I mean, he would be shutting down hunting, he would be shutting down, he would be restrictive on even people having barbecues at their own home or businesses. And so, I don't want to act like I'm defending the governor, but I think he's considering everything. And if it comes down to that we really need to ask for the National Guard to come in, I think we could work something out with the governor. We just haven't.
He called it from Hurricane Matthew.
Well, yeah, that's a different situation. And so I don't work for the governor. And so yeah, I would encourage you to continue talking to the governor's office and the representatives here. But I do know that the governor is aware, he's being briefed every day on the situation that we have, and that was direct from Robert Ferris with the state forester's office.
All right, there was one more question over here, and then I'll move to this side. Yeah, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you're talking about prepping areas and fire-wise programs. Why couldn't the community become involved in that instead of some of the firefighters, which would free them up to actually fight the fire? A coordinated effort.
So the question was about how can the community be involved in doing fire-wise type stuff to prep their community and houses to free up the fire.
In the area where the fire is rapidly approaching.
I think your local fire programs would encourage folks to do preventive efforts around their houses now. And we'll certainly, as we come in, add to that. But if people have time and capability to do things around their house, absolutely. We very much encourage that.
I'm not talking about, like, we've already done our fire prep, but you're talking about going into a community where you anticipate that the fire will be in 3 or 4 days, realistically, and you're using firefighters to blow leaves. What I'm saying is if you established a community program of volunteers, good leaf blower, I'm sure there are other leaf blowers that could be utilized.
Understand, certainly around your own properties, and if you want to help the fire departments, contact the chiefs. I think that would be fair, and see what opportunities are.
Ma'am, right here.
Yes, I see the eastern part of the fire, and then Raven Gap. I live in what's called Wolford Valley, which is in Raven Gap. As of about 5 or 6 yesterday afternoon, we were told that the fire was about 5 miles from the Wolford Valley. The smoke is just, super interesting out there. And it was like 3 miles from Patterson Gap. And then it moved during the night. Can you tell me, Wolford Valley, right around the Raven Gap area, is that fire advancing that way as well? I mean, it's going towards Betty's Creek over here, but what about Wolford, Raven Gap?
So the question is the fire moving south, right, towards Wolford Gap?
So the piece that's been the most active that Alex was talking about that's giving us trouble is this little corner. And what that's doing is following the ridge line with the winds that we've got going. And it's moved today, Alex, mile and a half out to Grassy Ridge. This portion of the fire to the south this flank has not moved. It's still primarily contained. What we're talking about doing, of course, is coming down and getting onto the road systems and coming across and back up into this drainage where there are certainly houses, and then coming out up this way. So if you take that map we were looking at earlier and put it on this topog line, or this ortho photo, it's coming through this country. So we will be north of Dillard, and this drainage will be north of Raven Gap, if all goes well. That's the plan. Again, the further south and east we go, as you know, the more and more structures we get into. So we're trying to keep it up on that hillside and limit to the extent possible the number of structures exposed.
Ma'am, right here.
We live between Grassy Ridge and Betty's Creek, and there are about 10 households. So they've been out there today. Are they going to be using logging roads and hiking trails and things?
So the question is are we going to be using logging roads or hiking trails between Grassy Ridge and Betty's Creek?
Where there are opportunities to get away from your house and pull the fire lines up away from your house, they will. For the most part, we're going to be using that main road that is probably the access to your house.
The Patterson Gap Road?
Yeah, Patterson Gap Road, that's correct. So that's going to be the main fire line. When we come to the structures, then we'll try to get the fire as far away from them as we can depending upon where they are. And without knowing exactly, where you're sitting, I can't answer that, but we're going to have to use that main road. We'll have dozers. We'll use those where we can, push the lines further up the hill and give us space. And where we can't, where the slopes are too steep or that sort of thing, we'll prep right around your house and we'll put the engines right in there with water, and we'll burn right around the structure. That's the other technique we've been successful in using, but certainly higher risk. So.
Let me get you gentlemen, and then we'll go back to this side of the room. Yes, sir.
So the closures on Patterson Gap Road are on the Persimmon side of Patterson Gap, and the Bays Creek side of Patterson Gap is still okay? It's not closed?
So the question is, where is the closure on Patterson Gap?
So what I had was Poplar Gap to Pavilion. So that would include.
It's going to be the whole.
This could be the whole stretch.
From Betty's Creek, from what I understand, from Betty's Creek on Patterson Gap over to the Persimmon side.
Okay, so from Betty's Creek on Patterson Gap, clear over to the Persimmon side. That stretch will be closed.
Okay, but residents can still get up to the house?
Yes, at this point, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we'll go to this side. Yes, ma'am.
I'd actually like to know a little bit more about the evacuation procedures, because we are actually on the west side of Betty's Creek at the end, right over the land, and we are on the slope. But how much advance notice do you typically give someone, and how do we know? Are you how are you doing that?
All right, so the question is, what are the evacuation procedures? How are they notified? And how much time we have?
So the way evacuations work, and we'll get into the detail there, and we've got the group of folks that can help facilitate that here behind me. But the emergency management organizations in your county are responsible for recommending those for implementing those evacuations. What we will do is, and we are in contact with them continuously, and we will recommend when we reach a point where we think that an evacuation warning, give you a heads up that fire is potentially coming your way. Please prepare to have to evacuate, not to evacuate, but prepare to. And then, if we feel that an evacuation, mandatory evacuation, is warranted, again, we would recommend that to the emergency officials. There are a couple of ways, and I don't know all the specifics of how we can ask the chiefs and the emergency management organizations on how all of that works, but they will make notifications that we got a reverse 911 going, or would you like to talk to that, Mike?
On the Georgia side, the way that we've been doing it is everybody that is in the pre-evacuation notice area, which is Patterson Gap, Betty's Creek, and all the roads from Betty's Creek up to the state line, has all been under a pre-evacuation notice. The way that we did that was we went around to all the homes with our search and rescue unit. We were knocking on doors and leaving notes to advise you under that pre-evacuation notice. If we get the evacuation is warranted from the Forest Service, then we will have the search and rescue team, the squad, go around to all the homes that are affected by that recommendation from the Forest Service. We will be knocking on the doors and making sure that everybody in that area is notified. If you're not home, we will leave a note on your door and let you know that evacuation is necessary and help you get out.
Okay. So to repeat that, for those of you that couldn't hear, on the Georgia side, the pre-evacuation notice was issued by a door-to-door contact with search and rescue. That's happened in a number of places, including Betty's Creek. If an evacuation, a mandatory evacuation is issued, same process will occur. Folks will knock on doors. If nobody's home, they'll leave a note, but they'll touch every structure. So in Macon County, same process.
Yes, ma'am. In Macon County, the process is the same. We'll actually also send sheriff's deputies to knock on the door. We sent the pre-evacuation notice to the regular sent out because that is so geographically confusing at some point when you have North Carolina and Georgia residents across the street from each other. We've been copying their notices to make sure everybody gets the same notice no matter where you live. We also use the reverse 911 system to actually call those folks and send messages to them, and we're actually leaving notices on board too. So the process is basically the same.
I know you
our intent would be to give you possible 24 hours notice, at a minimum 12 hours notice is what we're shooting for. And so now, that's based upon our projection of how fast the fire is spreading. And fire, by nature, is somewhat unpredictable, or difficult to predict at least. So, but that's our intent, is to give you warning so that it's not, an evacuation is a scary thing, but we want to give you time so you can do so in an orderly way, get the things you need, and get out before we have to come in to actually be, dealing with the fire that close to your structure. We'll be there before that, so we'll be in, and that's why I want to make the point. We'll be doing this preparatory work around structures when you're in a preparatory evacuation, not a mandatory evacuation. So we'll do everything we can to give as much warning as we can. We don't want to sound the alarm too early, because the last thing we want is for you to be under evacuation and then not, and then, so we'll be watching that very closely.
Thanks. Yes, sir. I'll go back to you.
Could we drill down just a little bit deeper about what the proposed boundaries are along Betty Street, containment areas and all, maybe a little more specific?
Right, so the question was, can we drill down a little bit closer to see exactly where those containment lines will be? Alex, which map do you want that would be most helpful? Which map would you like out? This one?
So I apologize, I don't have every one of the names of the roads memorized. I have it in my mind, but I don't actually have, it's a whole lot of road systems. So I'll work there, unless you can zoom in a little bit more to this area.
Zoom in a little on that eastern side. Betty Street there.
Try that. So we'll start down low here. So Abe Gap Road that comes off of Patterson Gap, familiar with that road? That's a tough road. It's a one-lane road, one-way traffic, not a lot of turnouts. But that's really our only southern opportunity in there before we get into a lot more values at risk. So we've currently prepped that road and have that as our primary place that we're going to fight fire on the southern end. The fire is moving to the east. We don't anticipate the fire being down on the southern end very soon because of the way this fire is spreading, but we know it will eventually make it down there. This has been a backing fire, for 12,000 acres. It just continues to back through drainages, continues to back over the top of ridges and down ridges. So that's our southern piece. Patterson Gap Road all the way down to Betty's Creek. We're going to take the Betty's Creek and I think it's Mulberry. Okay, move north, Mulberry up. And right in here, we put a dozer line in today that connects us over to the 7293A road. And we've opened these roads up. We, instead of going up top here, we've cut across. If you see on our map here, we have DP 14 and DP 15. We cut those off. We tied a dozer line in over towards Pickens Nose. It's a big rock feature that we believe is going to kind of check the fire up, check the fire spread, so we're going to use that to our advantage. If that doesn't work, then we'll be up on this road system all the way over until we tie into the 67 road system, and then we head north. We have a major drainage system. There you go. Thanks. Major drainage system here that we have to get around. That's another piece of ground that we just can't get through. We don't have the people to do that. That's crew country. Staying on the road system. We get up into here. I believe right in here, we're going to take Laurel Creek around to tie into the 7219. Follow the 7219 around to Deep Gap, which is back down into Tooele.
Alex, could you talk a little bit about around the community itself, what you might see if you have a feel there?
So we know, working really closely with Greg and some folks that have us, are providing us a lot of information of what do we have in here. We've driven a lot of these roads, we've scouted. We know we have, I think, roughly 85 structures on the North Carolina side, Greg, and then a number south in the Georgia side. We're going to have folks in there. We've had folks in there today, either looking or building dozer line. in conjunction with our partners. We're going to have more stuff in there tomorrow. We have a structure protection group that's moving in there tomorrow. When we talk about limited resources, that's the same structure protection group that just burned around a whole bunch of homes very successfully on the Tate City side in the last 2 days. Since that situation is stabilized, that group is picking up and moving over here to start working on all these structures to have what our intent is to have the same success that we have in Tate City of building dozer line. So if you notice, we didn't burn around all the homes in Tate City. We found a place to get up and around. There's a home really high up on the hill with one of the steepest driveways I've ever seen. We tied into that with some hand line and some dozer line, and we're able to bring fire in a coordinated effort around the homes back down to Lua. This is one large community, 56 structures, I believe. These are a lot more spread out. These bring quite a bit more complexity to us because they're roads off the main road. So we'll go up each one of those roads. We have the mapping and the information, thanks to our partners that provided us with that information, so we can see what is up, what the tax lots say, what kind of structures we have. And we'll go in, and with our structure protection group and our folks that have done a lot of this, is they'll assess the structure. What is needed? Can we use a dozer? Do we just blow leaves? Is it in a green meadow that we don't have to do anything? So each one of those structures, our intent is before the fire gets here, and as Noel said, it's very unpredictable. But our intent is to be out ahead of this thing with enough time to prepare, to plan, to figure out how it's going to work when and if the fire makes it down off Grassy Ridge into these communities. We know it's going to make it there eventually, unless we get some sort of unpredicted rainstorm, weather event that we haven't seen. We know that we're going to be down in here. We know that we need to be prepared for that, and that's our process of getting our folks in there. You're going to see a lot of vehicles, hence the reason for the road closures. It's tough for us to maneuver and operate in there when there's a lot of other people that are using those same road systems that aren't big enough for fire engines and dozers and those kind of things to move up and down.
Thanks, Alex. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
I just wondered how close the fire is to Mulberry?
How close is the fire to Mulberry?
So the fire currently, the easternmost edge of the fire is right on top of the divide, right here at Grassy Ridge. The way we get that information is through some technology, infrared technology. So we have a flight that's it's probably going to happen in the next hour or two. That's going to fly over. They're going to scan it with infrared technology. They're going to provide us some information so we can see the heat and see the edge of the fire. It's smoky and it's very difficult terrain, as you know. So it's difficult to figure out where the leading edge of that fire is. We have that flight that's scheduled tonight to tell us. So in the morning, when all of our folks go out, we know where the fire's edge is, and we can base our plan and our operations on that information. We also have another flight, daytime IR, that's going to happen later in the day. So that time period overnight, and what we've seen is a 24-hour burn period. So the fire isn't stopping even when it gets cold or in the dark hours of the night where normally fires tend to slow down. This fire has been moving 24 hours, 20 to 24 hours. So we need to know, okay, now where is it today? Where is it this time? And so we're constantly getting that information through technology to understand where the edge is, and we can make decisions on where we put our limited resources to protect values at risk based on that information. And that's very fluid, depending on if it continues to move directly east, or if it moves south, or if it moves north. We'll move our operation to protect those values at risk at the location where the impact is going to happen based on that information that we're getting on fire's edge.
Thanks, Alex. Ma'am, and then I'll move back over on this side.
First of all, I want to say thank you to all you guys and all the others. Betty, can you tell us a little bit about Timber Bluff?
Questions about Timber Bluff?
Well, Timber Bluff and then we changed it, we renamed it as Timber Ridge. And so if you get the forest-wide update, it's Timber Ridge. The containment lines have been holding. They started doing some suppression repair. Everything's looking good. There's some internal burning that they're mopping up. They did that today. And so it's holding and it's being worked right now. So, and it held up against the winds. So we were very thankful for that.
All right, yes, ma'am.
Like in the Tate City area, I guess just kind of watching things on TV, they, like, the Atlanta News showed, you know, how well y'all protected the little nice structures at Tate City. And I guess people just want to hear y'all say that the humble dwellings on Betty's Creek are going to be protected with the same intensity as the big old houses that were out in Tate City.
Yes, they are.
That's all you need to say.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Yes, sir.
There's some talk about the fire burning for 24 hours, and you haven't talked about this meeting about the behavior of this fire. Is it riding along leaf litter fast enough that it's not catching trees on fire? You're not fighting 14, 15-foot flames. How tall are the flames that reach the canopy? Just what's the behavior of the fire?
Yeah, so the question is, what is the fire doing? How is it behaving? Alex?
So this fire has generally been a backing fire. So 2 to 3 foot flame lengths. When we fly it, and I've had the opportunity to fly the whole fire a number of times, it's a constant line of fire in the leaf litter. It's taken out very little canopy. There's a few exceptions to that. There's been a few times where we've seen it make small runs, and when I say a small run, a couple acres, where it's actually built enough heat where you have slope and wind aligned, so wind blowing up the slope, enough intensity to where it burns the shrubbery. Something that we've experienced on this fire that we've been told has never really happened is we've seen rhododendron burn. And that's an indicator of the drought. That's an indicator of live fuel moistures being at such a low level that that fuel is becoming available. And for what I understand, in talking with our experts and locals, is that fuel's never been available. So that's what we're dealing with. Normally, in this type of fuel type is you have a wet leaf litter, a matted leaf litter underneath. Well, that leaf litter, that matted litter is burning. So you have the fluffy leaves, the new leaves, the leaf litter, and then down into the duff and all the organic components in the soil. So our folks, instead of doing what they've normally been able to do, which is blow the new leaves off and then that matted layer holds because it's moist, we have to dig all the way through that. We have to dig down to mineral soil because everything down to the soil components that just won't burn is burning. But no, we have not seen a lot of crown fire. We haven't seen runs in the brush. It's just a vacuum fire, and it's vacuuming through everything. It normally hasn't packed through. So creek bottoms, it'll figure out a way to get across them where traditionally or historically that was used to hold fire. If a creek was wet, then that was generally good. This year, because of the drought and because of the conditions, we're seeing something different. That's what's causing it. We call it chewing. It just continues to chew and continues to chew.
Thanks. So was there another question over on this side? I'll go with you. You raised his hand first. Yes, sir.
You told us that it's 13,000 acres right now. Best case estimate, what do you think?
We're going to get another pool or something. So the question is, how big could this thing get, the best estimate? Are you going to take a shot at it?
You can zoom out after that.
I'll show you what some of the potential is. I won't give you an acreage estimate, but
As Alex drew that, so if you zoom out on that.
More?
A little more.
Sorry. More?
Yeah, that's a bit much. I hope. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so Alex talked about where we're going here. Coming across, tying back in here, back down to the drainage, and then coming down the south end. That successful. That's our primary strategy right now. So that's what, roughly 30,000 acres? That's our primary strategy. Now, as we talked the other night, we have a primary, being firefighters, we hope for the best and plan for the worst. And so part of our planning process is, what if something doesn't happen well here, something doesn't happen here, well there, having a plan in place to address it. And that's actually where this plan came from. We had a primary strategy here, and we had an alternate strategy out here. And we had to go to our alternate. So there is potential that there's a lot more country up here, that if we're unsuccessful with this line, you know, we could be up here. An east wind, a wind coming from the east to the west, is very uncommon, as I understand it, in this part of the world. If we had one and we had a bad day, this is a very tough piece of country out to the west of us. It's wilderness and very inaccessible. So there's potential that we could be out there. That's why we're spending so much effort, again, up here to get a north-south line on the western flank. So there's potential. Probably this fire is going to be 30,000 acres. It could be larger than that.
So no, can I say something on that? So I wanted to emphasize though, this is a full suppression fire. I don't want to have any misconceptions that we're letting this burn. Because we're not. Remember Noel's priorities. And these are the priorities that I gave him. Human and firefighter life, number one. And then property. Your property is important to me. I don't want to have any structures burned up. And so that means the third thing is the number of acres that end up getting burned. And so I don't want to kill anybody, and I don't want to burn up anybody's home. And so if that means the fire gets bigger than what we're used to, that may happen. But this is a full suppression fire.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you talk a little bit more about the southern end of the park, that crazy report area? Is that okay? So like that, what would cause that fire to
Look okay. All right.
So you notice the different, this is all red, that's where our fire is spreading, and you notice that this is all black. So that's an area that we've determined is contained. So in our world, we contain a fire and then we control it. Containment is, we have a line, we feel relatively confident that that fire will stay where that line is. And so that's why we blacken the map at containment. Pretty much all of this country, all the way around the south and Charlie's Creek is really in a patrol mode. We're not having to fight fire, we're not building line, we're not burning, we're not doing any of that stuff. It's been sitting where it's sitting for a number of days now. Now the caveat to that is when the wind blew this weekend, leaves continue to fall. So we have folks that are out there on the roads, the dozer lines, the hand lines, and the creek beds, actively patrolling, re-blowing the lines, so blowing the leaves back out of the containment line so we don't get anything that starts interior, continues to burn through a new layer of leaves, and becomes a problem for us. So we do that in a number of ways. We do that by patrolling the roads with engines, the hand lines and the dozer lines that we can't drive on. We have crews walking, and then we do a lot of it by air. We have aerial supervision over this fire, either in a helicopter or an airplane, constantly that's watching from the air to see if anything pops up. If that happens, they see anything that doesn't look normal, they let us know. We get either aviation resources there or people on the ground, depending on where it's at. So this is a high confidence area for us, but there's always that very slight chance. We're never going to let our guard down. We're always going to plan for the worst case scenario. We know a lot of more leaves have dropped, and we'll continue to monitor that and do everything that we can to ensure that that doesn't continue to move. Our challenge with that is with limited resources, we're constantly deciding what do we leave behind to make sure that we don't lose an investment that we already have, and what do we take from that investment? What do we have to leave there? What can we take to go up to deal with the next problem? And that's a very fluid thing when we don't have that many folks here to deal with the fire. So we're constantly moving from holding what we have, keep an investment, to let's go up and to protect the next set of problems.
Thanks. I'll move to this side. Yes, sir.
Yeah, has the scoop plane been used here? Has it shown up? And if not, or how much access do we have to it?
Okay, so the question is, has the scoop plane been used, and do we still have access to it?
So the answer is yes. We actually use the scoopers today. There's 2 of them. They're scooping out of the lake, no, not Lake Burton, over the lake over here. Yeah, so that's where they're using it. We tried to use them this weekend. The air is too rough. If it's too rough for a helicopter, it's way too rough for an airplane, especially going over the ridges, so we weren't able to use them. We did activate those, plus 4 helicopters today. So the great big helicopters, you may have seen them flying around. We had 4 of those flying all day today. The challenge with the scooper is they don't like to be in the same airspace as a helicopter. So that area of supervision is coordinating that. What's the right tool to use on is it a ridge? Does it need to be more pinpointed down in a canyon? So we're using a combination of all those tools that are available to us to check and hold and support the firefighter, depending on where they are at, what the wind's doing, and a lot of things like that. Dip sites are a big challenge for us. Is where's the right dip site to get water that makes it efficient for the helicopter to fly and not have to go down and then back over a ridge and down to where they need to drop. So access to dip sites and waters is something that we've worked out a lot. But as the fire moves and we move north, there's a very lack of water up here as dip sites. So our travel times for the helicopters are going to get larger.
You said 2 planes? We've had access to 2 scoop planes?
That's correct. And they basically scoopers always run in pairs. They run in tandem. So they go together, they get water, they come back, and they lay one, and then lay the second one right after.
I think a heavy helicopter carries about 800 to 1,200 gallons.
Yeah, we have a couple different models, but they're right around 1,000 gallons for a heavy helicopter.
Right. Yes, sir.
As the crow flies from Betty Creek Road down to Wilson Road, what would that distance be?
What is the distance between Wolford Road and Betty Street? Okay, that's a crow flies.
You have to remind me where Wolford Road is.
There's a little clearing on the lower right-hand side.
Right there?
No, down there.
Yeah. That's Wolford and Betty's. Right there. Yeah, it's at least 4, 5, 6 miles.
Yeah, about 5 or 6 miles. Yeah.
Okay, 5 to 6 miles.
Fire, you're trying to run the fire back to the north.
Correct. We're trying to get our bookend back.
All right, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
When will you be evacuating people off of Patterson Gap Road?
The question is, when will we be evacuating people up Patterson Gap Road?
Again, that's going to depend on how the fire moves tonight and tomorrow. So right now, precautionary evacuation in that area. There's a potential. It could be as soon as tomorrow afternoon. There's a potential.
There was one more question on this. Oh, yes, ma'am.
One has to be minor compared to people in houses and what has happened to wildlife in this? Is it running wild off? Is it killing it? Well, they come to my yard.
All right, so the question is, what's happened to the wildlife as a result of the fire? Let's answer that one.
Vincent, David Vincent.
In general, most of the species of wildlife that live here have evolved with fire. And so some of the smaller critters that can't move very far, very fast are certainly going to be impacted in that. Things that live underground are going to do pretty well. As Alex mentioned, this tends to be a vacuum fire. It's not moving that fast, just constant. So the deer will tend to move, the birds are going to move, that sort of thing. So most species actually do pretty well with fire. If you think of burrows, that sort of thing. So, and there's certainly some mortality, but.
Let me help it.
Okay.
Hi, so my name is Amanda McAdams. I represent the National Forest of North Carolina. And when we manage fires like this, we are concerned about wildlife
plants, the Appalachian Trail, for example. And we have folks out there who work on the fire, and that's why I pointed to David back there. They're called resource advisors, and they're out there to ensure that as we suppress this fire, we consider everything. They name the priorities really well. Structures matter to us, human life and safety matters first. But we are considering all those facts when we do this. Whether it's in Georgia or whether it's in North Carolina, we're not happy to see our ground burn in this way, especially with how these fires started. But we would rather see our ground burn than your houses. So know that we're committed to do what we can to protect wildlife, animals, natural and cultural resources. But we got the same priorities as everybody sitting in the jury box, all the cooperators, and we're in this together.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir, way back in the back there. And you next.
Yes. First of all, I just want to say I really appreciate a meeting like this. Not only learning more closely about the situation today, but how firefighting goes in general. Very, very informational. As a result, I was wondering, is tonight's meeting's information going to be available? And secondly, what is the best way to get live online information about the fire going forward?
Good question. So the question is this information at this meeting will be available? Yes, we are actually, are we live streaming it right now? We are live streaming it on Facebook, and so those are recorded as well, so you can go back and take a look at what we said and validate what we said. And then the best way to continue to get information is to get on our email list. We send updates in the morning, plus on that update, in the business card, you'll see links to the Facebook feed, the Twitter feed. There's a blog, Spot Penny Dingy, and as well as IncyWeb. So we update those as appropriate. When things change, those things will be updated. So if you just track those, that's the best way to keep up to date, and or just give us a call. Right. Yes, sir.
I may be missing something. The gentleman in the second row here much earlier brought up what I thought was a good point, which was if Governor Deal called this an emergency, a state emergency, then it would free up the National Guard, and they could do a lot of this perimeter check and get the pros out there with more backup, more firepower. Now, am I wrong in this? Wouldn't that do everybody good? And if I'm correct, if this gentleman up here was correct, why didn't everybody in Rabun County call it Governor Deal? 15,000 people would mean a lot to maybe getting his attention.
So the question again is around, can the National Guard be deployed here to help out? I'm not sure that
anybody from the states here that.
If we got the National Guard, would it do you guys good in fighting the fire and making people come to the perimeter checking out?
So I'm not sure we can answer the question any better than we did earlier. And you have that avenue to contact the governor and representatives.
That you've got an email and call Governor Deal's office.
Right. So noted.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. You're welcome. Any other questions? All right. Well, yes, ma'am. One more?
My question is air quality. We live in Tiger, so we're not impacted at this point by the fire other than smoke. And they talked about masks and what was dangerous if you had breathing difficulties. Where parts of the day we are clear, parts of the day we can't see across the valley. From Tiger Mountain to us. When is it dangerous?
Okay, so the question is about air quality, and as I mentioned previously, we do produce, not we, but one of our smoke experts produces a report based on the weather on where that smoke will go and how heavy that smoke will be in certain areas. So that would be the best place to get that information. And Mark and Dave can address the piece on how it affects your health. And basically, if you look at that fact sheet, it gives you some tips about staying indoors, especially if you have lung issues, to stay inside. I mean, if it gets so extreme and so long, you might actually consider getting out of the area and going to a family member somewhere out of the smoke. So, Mark, okay, right. encourage you guys to again, keep track of that stuff on our social media feeds and see what, because we do provide that information. All right, any other questions? All right, if not, well, thank you again for coming and taking that.
I was going to introduce Steve, y'all. Go and check my